Hello, welcome to Alyssa Jean's Reviews, and welcome to my review for Star Trek Lower Decks, Season 4, Episode 9, The Inner Fight. This video will be filled with spoilers if you did not watch the episode before clicking on this video, so make sure you watch the episode first. That should go without saying. So, The Inner Fight, let's start with the title, a play on words with the inner light, although really has nothing to do with the Inner Light. Is not really a parody of the Inner Light. We got that earlier in the season. But it is an appropriate title for this episode. So, coming into this episode, there was a lot of secrecy. Mike McMahon, the creator, was trying to keep things under wraps, didn't really want to reveal what this plot was. The promotional photos that were released ahead of the episode, which happens every week, they were only photos of the cold opening with those scientists that, has nothing to do with anything, because they didn't want to give anything away. So when I saw that, I thought, okay, good, we're finally going to get some answers here with this season-long plot, this season-long mystery we've been following, and indeed that was the case, and I found this to be very satisfying. Now, we don't have the full picture yet. We don't know fully what is going on. There's still more answers to come out, but what we got so far I am satisfied with. Also, there was an article I was reading that was showing the promotional pictures and talking about how Mike McMahon was keeping things secret, and also quoted him as saying that his favorite episode in the series for comedy is Crisis Point from season 1, which, good choice. That's a good choice. But his favorite episode for heart was this upcoming season 4, episode 9. In the whole series, is what he was saying, in the episode that he has done for Lower Decks. That's a high bar to set. Do I think that this is my favorite episode for Heart in the series? I wouldn't say that. I mean, that's a hard bar to clear, because Lower Decks is good for having heart and character growth and just making you feel good. Lower Decks does that well. So to say this was the best episode for that, that's hard to say. Now, Mike McMahon, of course, can have his opinion, although I do wonder when I hear things like that, does he really mean it, or is he just trying to hype up the upcoming episode and get people pumped for it? I don't know. I like to believe Mike McMahon is a genuine guy. I wouldn't do that, but who knows? I don't know. I can't say. But in any case, I do think this episode did have some heart. Whether or not it was like the most heart of any episode, I wouldn't say that, but it doesn't have to be. Now, I did really enjoy this episode. I come up feeling very positive on it, but I am curious to hear what other people are going to say, and it's not going to change my opinion. I'm still positive on it no matter what anyone else says, but I'm curious because this did focus more on Mariner's inner struggle, her inner fight, if you will, and it's picking up from that episode, was that 5 or 6, with the 5, I think, when they went to Ferenginar. And a lot of people I saw on YouTube were criticizing the Mariner plot, saying that it wasn't interesting, it was redundant. I heard one YouTuber say that this had already been resolved, why are we still doing this? And I disagreed with that. I didn't think that it had been resolved. By my perception, I didn't feel like it had been resolved, and I was a little bit surprised that multiple people were feeling that way toward it, which they're obviously entitled to their opinions, but that is not how I perceived it. And obviously it's not how Mike McMahon perceives it. He still thought it was an ongoing struggle for Mariner. That's why he's still doing it. And that's how I perceived it. I thought she was having this ongoing struggle with always getting promoted and then wanting to self-sabotage. I never thought that was resolved. I think one person who said it was resolved, I think, pointed to an earlier episode with her and Ransom. I can't remember what it was now, but that he felt like, well, her and Ransom wrapped that up neatly, but I didn't see it that way. I still see it as an ongoing struggle for Mariner. So I like this episode, and I liked her plot in the Ferenginar episode, which I feel like I was kind of the only one like that, or one of the only ones, at least amongst the YouTube videos that I watch. I liked it there. I like it here, and I do think that it's a good story for her. And I never thought it was resolved. But I'm curious to hear what other people think. Also, she gives a reveal about her past, which I'll get into later, which is a retcon. And I'll talk about retcons later too. Retcons are not necessarily bad. People hear the word retcon and go, "Oh, you're saying it sucks. It's bad." No, retcons are not necessarily bad. But this is a retcon, so I'm curious to hear how other people feel about that as well. I come out positive on this as well. Yeah, overall I'm feeling very positive, but do need to see that second part. I want to see the final resolution to this. Let's go ahead and get into it. I'll also get into the Nicholas Locarno of it all as I get more into the details. That was a nice callback, and I love that they got Robert Duncan McNeil to voice him. But I'll get more into that. Let's get into the details. Let's get going on this. So, before I get into the Mariner of it all, let's get the subplot out of the way, the B plot out of the way, which was with Freeman, Shax, and for some weird reason, Rutherford, because going on this mission to get information about the whereabouts of one Nicholas Locarno. And, you know, I have talked a lot about in recent videos, especially in some of my top 100 videos, about how Star Trek always does this thing where they send people on away missions where it makes no sense for them to be, just so that they can have that character in the story. And it's just a thing Star Trek has ever always done, going back to TOS. TOS may be one of the biggest offenders of this. And so it's just something we accept at this point. But I just kind of chuckle that, you know, they put Rutherford on here. Why would he be there? But let's actually first talk about the four people that were supposedly targeted, former Starfleet officers. 7 of 9, which technically, you know, she wasn't a Starfleet officer ever, but I guess they're counting her as one since she served on the Starfleet ship. I don't know if she's joined up with what were they, the Fenwick Rangers or whatever they were called. I don't know if at this point in the timeline she's joined up with them yet. Beverly Crusher, who at this point they're calling her former Starfleet officer, so she's left, and so I'm assuming Jack has been born at this point. I'm again fuzzy on the timeline, but I think this would fall into the area where he would be a baby or a little child. And so she's off taking care of him. And I love how Boimler's like, "Oh, Beverly Crusher!" and Freeman's like, "No, some other ship is going to do Beverly Crusher. We're getting Nicholas Locarno." But also, Thomas Riker, that's an interesting one, because last we saw him, he was going off to prison for being with the Maquis. So he's not in prison anymore. I want more. What happened with Thomas Riker? I don't think we're going to get that, but I'm really intrigued by that. So anyway, they're looking for Nicholas Locarno, who of course was originally played by Robert Duncan McNeil before he played Tom Paris in the Next Generation 5th season episode First Duty, in which we go visit Wesley at Starfleet Academy, and there's this whole controversy about a cadet that gets killed, and whether there was neglect and recklessness involved, and Nicholas Locarno ends up taking the fall for that, as he was kind of the ringleader for it, and he was played by Robert Duncan McNeil. And he supposedly has now gone off to sell, or he's some kind of mercenary. I didn't quite get it. Or he sells, I don't know. This is something. he's some kind of independent contractor, but they're worried about him being targeted. So they're looking for him to protect him. Of course, we find out at the end he's kind of the mastermind behind the whole thing, which is intriguing. We'll get into that. So anyway, I said I was going to be talking about this B-plot. We've got Freeman, Rutherford, and Shax going down to this planet. Now, the first thing about this B-plot I have to point out is that it didn't need to happen. And don't get me wrong, I still enjoyed it. I still had fun with it, but when there's the reveal at the end that Billups was playing this bounty hunter that talked exactly like the Breen, like but didn't look anything like the Breen. Why Billups again? That should be a security officer, but whatever. That he was playing this, bounty hunter, and he's got the information while Freeman was simply just distracting them from Billups as this bounty hunter so that he could get the information. Did they need to do that? I mean, could they not have just sent Billups? Honestly, he should have been a security officer, but let's just go with the premise. Send Billups down disguised as a bounty hunter and just get the information. What did Freeman even need to be there for? I think the whole thing didn't actually need to happen. But that said, I did enjoy it, especially the shout out to the Corbinite maneuver and how she was like, "You're just a puppet." It was like lifting him up and shaking him. He was like, "I'm not a puppet." How dare you call me a puppet? That was good. I liked that the storyline exists just for that little joke, but it didn't really need to exist. And I love that Freeman was only pretending to be incompetent. I love that they are really portraying Freeman this season as a really competent and kind of badass captain. I really love that because the joke that they're incompetent or whatever would get old. That I love that they're showing that Freeman is actually a good captain, and this happened in the Ferengi episode as well. So I did appreciate the reveal that this was all a part of her plan, and she wasn't really as dumb as she was pretending to be. So I did appreciate that as well. So now let's go ahead and get into our main storyline with Mariner. Okay, so we get this storyline where Mariner is being reckless. This is kind of a continuation of the storyline from episode 5, which is why I'm really curious to hear what other people are going to say about it. But she is, needlessly putting her life in danger. So Freeman sends her off to what she believes to be this, mundane, not dangerous mission. Turns out that's not actually the case. And sends Tindy, Boimler, and T'Lyn to kind of babysit her. It's so great to see T'Lyn back after a 3-episode absence. Way too many. I heard Scuttle that Mike McMahon is saying T'Lyn will play a big part in season 5, so I'm looking forward to that. I love this character anytime she appears on screen. And I love that we got a little bit of a reveal that Mariner and T'Lyn both recognized that they were involved in that battle with the Pakleds and the Klingons. You're like, oh, you were there too? So that was cool. But anyway, so they're attacked by a Klingon ship. Now I'm very curious to see what the deal is with them. Maybe they made some kind of bargain, some kind of deal to work with Locarno to help protect whatever it is he's doing. So very curious about that, see where we're going with that. That's very interesting to me. And it turns out that this planet is the planet where all of our previous alien species that we have seen be wiped away by this mysterious ship are being held captive, and they're kind of turning into Lord of the Flies type of deal. They're all fighting against each other. Again, we don't know why yet, but I'm very intrigued by this. I am very intrigued by this concept. Not a unique concept by any stretch of the imagination, but not everything has to be. I'm still very intrigued by this. And I love that we get that Klingon from the episode Wage Douche. I was a little concerned when that first episode where he gets wiped away, it was like, did they just kill that character? But I think that was my early suspicion of they probably aren't all dead, because they wouldn't kill that character just like that, I don't think. He had a whole episode before, and they're just going to wipe him away like that? I don't think Lower Decks would do that. So I am glad that he is very much alive, and that he has this very sweet interaction with Mariner, and that Mariner, this is typical of Mariner, I feel like, that she confesses things to other people outside of her friends. I think she did that with the archaeologist lady from last season, like that she kind of spills the beans. So that's where the heart comes in. And I loved that scene. I really did. Now, here's also where a retcon comes in, because we get the reveal that Mariner's motivation is that she had a very close friend in the academy who taught her everything she knew, who was a badass, got posted to the Enterprise, and then was promptly killed. And this friend of hers is Sito, also from the episode First Duty and from the episode Lower Decks that this show is named after. So they're really getting meta here, like actually going into the episode that this whole show is named after. And so it is a retcon because they are inserting Mariner into a storyline that she previously did not exist in. So she apparently was buddies with Sito, and she knew Nicholas Locarno. I assume she must have known Wesley as well, if that's the case. So after Nick Locarno would have been expelled from Starfleet Academy after the events of First Duty, would be assuming that that's probably where the time period where Sito and Mariner became really good friends would probably be after that event. But she did know Nick Locarno as well. So they're sticking Mariner into this. And again, not all retcons are bad. This is a retcon. There's no argument that it's not a retcon, but there's an argument that it's a good retcon. Sometimes retcons are necessary, or not even necessary per se, but are useful and helpful to enhance the story. Most often, they kind of hurt the story, but some retcons are good. In fact, tomorrow, Friday, October 27th, I'm releasing my number 4 video for my top 100, and I'm not going to tell you what the episode is yet, but I will say that in that review, at some point, I do point out a good retcon that particular episode does, because I do think that retcons can help the story. So again, I'm curious to think if people are going to feel like this is a bad retcon, that this doesn't work for them. I had to process it a little bit. I wasn't quite sure how I felt when I first saw it, but I'm coming out on the positive side of this. I'm coming out that it adds depth to Mariner's character without just kind of inventing a situation out of nowhere that we know nothing about. This is actually a situation that we do know about, that we have seen on screen. But they are inventing Mariner's connection to it, as we've never seen her involved in that storyline before. So I think that could be where some folks might have an issue with it. I don't. I do like that it explains a lot of Mariner's motivation. I think, to me, it proves that her inner fight, as it were, was not resolved. I never thought that it was, and I view this as proof of that, but I'm curious to see how others will perceive that. I thought that this was a great character story, and I do think that it had a lot of heart, and the scene between her and the Klingon dude, I did think it had a lot of heart. I did really like it. So then Mariner and the Klingon dude go and encounter all the other people who are fighting amongst each other. We get the return of the Orions. We find out that not only did the Ferengi have contact with the ship in advance, which we had seen, but the Orions did as well, which is a reveal, because I don't think that was revealed before. Tindy comes in, uses her Mistress of the Winter Queen powers. Not the Mistress of the Winter Queen, Mistress of the Winter, whatever. Winter Queen is a fish song. Anyways, she using her powers for that. I, had issue with that when it happened, but whatever. We're going to let it go. And they're able to convince them to all stick together. And then Mariner is mysteriously beamed away. And then they end up taking on the Klingon ship that appears to be in cahoots with, I'm going to say, Nicholas Locarno. Maybe there are other people involved in this besides Nick Locarno. I'll talk about that in a second. But they appear to have made some kind of deal with him and be working for him. So curious about that. But they're able to take that Klingon ship. But they find out, to the surprise of Boimler and the characters, but not to a surprise of me at all, was that Mariner wasn't beamed to that ship. And that's where we get the reveal. She's beamed to that little ship that has been causing all this trouble all season long. And there he is, Nicholas Locarno, and to be continued. I love that they got Robert Duncan McNeil to play this, to voice this character. And I love that they're bringing this is a bold choice to bring this character back and solidify him in canon, even though he was played by the same actor who played Tom Paris. I love that they did make that bold choice. And you can do it in animation. You can make him look a little bit different. You can pretend it is a different dude, because it was a different dude. I wonder if there's going to be any Tom Paris jokes in the next episode. It feels like there has to be, right? Wouldn't there have to be some jokes about how he looks just like Tom Paris? You would think, right? Now, this does seem to squash my theory that it was Section 31 and William Boimler, which is a little disappointing because that's a hanging thread. Now, I suppose we could still get the reveal that William Boimler is involved in this somehow, but I feel like that's a little too many reveals. Like, we already got the big reveal, Nick Locarno is behind it. So if we have yet another reveal, William Boimler is also behind it, that feels a little too much at this point. So at this point, I don't want them to do that anymore, but I am disappointed that that's not the direction they went in, because what is William Boimler up to? Like, this is a hanging thread that they left after season 3. I mean, maybe he still is involved, but I don't know if that's going to work. So we'll see. So for now, it does appear that Nicholas Locarno is the mastermind behind this, and I'm intrigued. I'm curious to see what his plan was. What the hell is he doing? What is this for? I don't know. It could still be Section 31 and all that. I don't know. Maybe Thomas Riker will also appear. That would be kind of cool too. Because I've been assuming we're not getting any answers to the Thomas Riker question. But I don't know. I'm really intrigued by this plot. I would love to see a Boimler-centric episode. Boimler has been just kind of delegated to side plots this season after the Bold Boimler storyline last year. So I don't know if we're going to pull that off. We may be continuing with the Mariner story. I don't know. But we shall see. I am excited about next week's episode regardless. Okay. So now is the point in the episode, or the video rather, where I typically give my rating out of 10 for the episode. But I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to do something, in fact, I haven't ever done before in any of my reviews. My rating out of 10 for The Inner Fight is pass. I'm going to pass on this until next week. Because if I gave this a rating now, very likely I would come back next week and going, well, after I've watched part 2, now I'm changing my mind. Like, I really need to see part 2 before I can judge part 1. Now, if this ends up being two different titles, this one's the Inner Fight, and the next week is titled something else, which I suspect that's how they'll go. That's like the Enterprise model or the Deep Space Nine model, where you have two connected episodes that have different titles. If they go in that direction, then I will give my separate ratings for episodes 9 and 10 next week. At the end of that review, I'll say, okay, so my rating for episode 9 is this, and my rating for episode 10 is this. However, if to my surprise they name this the Inner Fight Part 2, then it goes under the rules that I have always used on this channel for episodes that have a Part 1 and 2 with the same title, and that is that I count them as one episode. So in that case, I would come out and give one rating for the Inner Fight Part 1 and 2. But I don't think that's what they're going to do. I think it'll probably have a separate title. So in that case, I will probably come out and do, okay, episode 9, the Inner Fight, is this rating. Episode 10 is this rating. And I will do that next week. Because if I give a rating now, I'm just going to end up changing it next week anyway. So there's no point. I will tell you that I am currently floating in the 8 to 9 range on this episode. 8, 8.5, or 9. That's kind of the ballpark that I am at with this episode. But whether it ends up being an 8, an 8.5, or a 9 depends on next week's episode. Or maybe next week's episode really tanks this one for me and it goes below an 8. I see that as unlikely, but you never know. So, we shall see. Or maybe it even elevates it to a 10. I don't see that as likely either, but who knows. Anyways, that does it for my review for the Inner Fight. And I will be back one more time next week to do my review for Season 4, Episode 10, the finale, the second part to this two-parter. I'm really curious to see what other people thought of this episode. Alright, guys, I will see you then. Subscribe if you have not already, and goodbye, everybody.